Hey, everybody. Welcome to Mothering as a Revolutionary Act. My name is Taylin Harris, and I am one of the co-founders of the Bloom Collective. In addition, I am one of the kindred partners with the Black Mamas Matter Alliance, and we are extremely excited to have you here with us for Black Maternal Health Week. This is the fourth annual Black Maternal Health Week, which is a campaign founded by the Black Mamas Matter Alliance, which is a week of awareness, activism, and community building intended to deepen the national conversation around Black maternal health, amplify community-driven policy, research, and care solutions, center the voices of Black mamas, women, families, and stakeholders, and provide a national platform for Black-led entities on efforts on maternal health, birth equity, and reproductive justice, and enhance community organizing. I'm extremely excited for our panel today. We are going to be centering joy, liberation, and all things around the political understanding of Black motherhood and all that we deserve and we love in our communities. And I'm extremely excited to introduce you all to, we have with us Jessica Marie Johnson. Hey, we also have Jennifer White Johnson. Johnson and Johnson.
That's right.
Hey, kinfolk.
We have Andrea Cole.
Mm-hmm. Hi, y'all.
We have Sam Smith.
Peace, everyone.
We have Shawnee Mott.
Hello.
And we also have our sister cousin, Kalila Harris.
What up?
Hey, everyone. And if you could, we're going to quickly just go around, and if everyone could just let everyone know who you are, who you be. And so if we could go ahead and start with Jessica.
Hello, everyone. Jessica Marie Johnson. I am a professor and historian at Johns Hopkins University. I'm based here in Baltimore, and mama of two rambunctious, very, very, very little ones, under two. And I am the author of Wicked Flesh, Black Women, Intimacy, and Freedom in the Atlantic World. So the focus of my research is on history of slavery. You reaching for it? Stop! Thank you.
Hey, Jen, can you go ahead and introduce yourself to us?
Yes. First off, thank you so much for holding space for all of us Black mamas today. It's an honor to be here. In terms of just dealing with the trauma and all of the heaviness that is happening in the world. So I just want to give a shout out to all the Black mamas today that are going through some things. And Black papas as well. My name is Jen White Johnson. I currently reside in Baltimore, Maryland, and I am an educator. I currently teach at Bowie State University. I've been there for about 10 years, and teaching photography and graphic design. And I also identify as a disabled woman who lives with ADHD. And I also am a mother to one son who is 8 years old, and he is autistic. So it's a really fun neurodivergent family and experience. So every day in our home is just kind of like chaotic, but it's full of beauty and disabled joy. And so I'm just happy to be in the room tonight with everybody. Thank you. And I'm also the author of an amazing photo zine entitled Knox Rocks. That is really like my love letter to the disability community, specifically highlighting, what autism looks like in Black and Brown families, but from a very respectable lens. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Andrea?
Hi, y'all. I'm so honored to be with you. My name is Andrea Cole. I'm the director of A Revolutionary Summer. It's a summer program in Baltimore for Black girls 15 and older. We read everyone from Toni Morrison to Audre Lorde, but in addition to text, we study visual art and film and photography, all in an effort to counter, negative narratives about Black women and girls. I'm also a restorative practices specialist, which means that I help people work on their relationships in order to strengthen their communities. And then lastly, I'm a writer, and I center Black women and girls in my fiction.
Thank you so much. Sam?
Hey, y'all. Hey. Thank you again so much for welcoming us and just embracing our voices, of course. And I'm so excited for this space and to share with you ladies. I am Sam Smith. I'm the creator and lead visionary for the New Vintage by Sam luxury lifestyle brand. We specialize in healing hardware and vintage inspired luxuries for the spirit. So I love to design. I am a creative through and through, a creative director. And additionally, I am a fashion and art instructor. I really enjoy teaching the youth just different ways to create a life that feels good for them. And I am a blogger. I have a blog called Dressed in Motherhood, just sharing my perspective in the space of just building a business and family. It's a whole process. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Sam. Shawnee?
Thank you.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this panel. I know one of the questions is like, what brings you joy? And I can't tell you how joyful I feel right now to be with you all and just to hear all of the fantastic, fabulous things you all are doing. I am Shani Mott. I'm relatively new to Baltimore, originally from Chicago. I'm a lecturer at Johns Hopkins University in the history department in Africana studies. I teach mostly Black literature classes, but that's just what I do to help pay bills. I think if I had to talk about myself in terms of what it is I do or who it is I am, I am a dreamer, I'm a seeker, I'm a questioner, and I love to work with Black children. And I have hopes of using literature as a way to teach young people about themselves, but also to give them space to take that literature and turn it into drama form so they can express different aspects.
Thank you so much, Shawnee. Kalila?
Thank you for having me in the space today. I'm so delighted to be with you all and be in community. I am Dr. Kalila Harris. I would like to give a land acknowledgement for the Lenape Susquehannock people whose unceded land I live on at this time. And I'm so grateful for them and the sacrifices that they made in stewarding this land until it was surreptitiously yoked from them by colonizers. So many thanks and praises to the Lenape and Susquehannock ancestors for being stewards of this land. I was born on Lenape Canarsie land, otherwise known as Brooklyn, New York. I have 3 gorgeous daughters, aged 18, 16, and 11. My side gig is I'm a vice president of K-12 education policy at the Center for American Progress and a non-resident senior fellow with the Maryland Center on Economic Policy. But my real job is mom to those 3 girls, and I'm so blessed to be here tonight to talk about how important that is to me and why I believe it's a revolutionary act.
All right, thank you. And thank you so much for the land acknowledgement. We also want to uplift the Piscataway land that we are on as well. Well, some of us are on in Baltimore City, and honoring those who steward and love up on this land and provide a nourishing and loving place for us as well. And so we're going to go ahead and get into it, y'all. And y'all can jump in at any point in time. Don't wait too long, though. So let's kick it off. What does mothering as a revolutionary act mean to you? How is it showing up and how is it manifesting through time and space? Go ahead.
Creating boundaries for myself. I hope I didn't step on anyone's toes, but creating boundaries for myself and knowing that I don't have to do it all. And that has been huge for me. Especially seeing my mom being one of those mothers who is amazing, but she does the most, in some cases unnecessarily. She goes beyond, what's necessary. And it's just being able to practice temperance with, my outpouring, in addition to letting my daughter know, like, hey, mommy needs a moment. She cannot match your energy. And just finding a loving language to be able to communicate that we need, space and time to be, me. I need me time. So that has been huge for me. It's just establishing boundaries. That's definitely my revolution.
Boundary setting. Love it.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say for me it's honoring the sacred space that is Black childhood first and foremost, allowing my children. I ain't even say nothing about my children when I first came on, y'all.
They there, honey. They there, child. Ain't going
They know
nowhere.
your heart. They know your heart.
I know your heart.
Oh, Lord. Honoring the sacred space that is Black childhood, right? First and foremost, allowing them to be children. Understanding that my son is in pursuit of social, intellectual, emotional, spiritual skills that he may not master for years or decades. Handling him as if that's the case, right? So I'm a writer. Sometimes I'm a writing teacher, and I play different roles when I'm working with, you know, a fellow writer on developing a piece of work. And in the beginning stages, I'm coach, right? I'm cheerleader, activist. I don't begin to get more critical until we see a final product. And so I like to view my son as developing, right? I'm not going to speak on him as if he has, you know, reached the milestones that you know, that I've reached, because he hasn't. It also means committing to no violence in my household. And that has been a journey that I've grown on. I'm actually to a point now where we don't even do timeout. And my thinking is that I'm not going to dispose of you, especially when things are tough, right? You're exhibiting this challenging behavior because you lack the skills to be able to show up in a different kind of way. And rather than that need, deny it and send you away, let's just jump in and figure out how to meet this thing, right? So that commitment and just being vigilant about not being violent in those subtle ways. You know what I mean?
So I'd love to jump in here and I appreciate what's been shared already, and I'm letting it sit with me. Cousin Tanae knows that mothering as a revolutionary act is a day-to-day process for me, especially when I got to go air someplace out about my child. And you know, I am so serious with this smile on my face. And so, you know, it's interesting, Andrea, you talked about just being emotionally present and consistent and stable for your son, and making sure you aren't assessing him against where you are, right, as an adult. And for me, the revolution has been being from their birth, telling my children how dope they are, that they can do anything, that their hair is lovely. Mothering 3 daughters in this world, on this planet, is a day-to-day effort of reminding them who they are and whose they are. And, you know, that comes in the face of a teacher telling you you need work, or asking you, why can't you figure out what everybody else is figuring out, and having them completely crush your desires to be a mathematician, and having it sit with you for years until you're able to share it publicly for the first time, in a space where we're all talking about being Black at some school. And, you know, for me, it truly is, you know, so we're allowed as mamas to brag on our children. And I dare anybody to come at me talking about, well, you shouldn't post the schools your daughter's getting into because that may make somebody. I'm like, let me explain what you're not going to do, right? You're going to listen to me say my child has a near perfect SAT score and is going to University of Pennsylvania and got into Howard and got, like, I'm going to go all the way through, because if nobody shouts my child out, I'm going to shout my child out. And I tell my children, I will put somebody up for you. I need them to believe it. I need them to believe it. I want them to believe it and go into white spaces and in spaces where they're in a minority and understand they belong there. I am not a proponent of inclusion, because inclusion means I'm inviting you into what's mine and accepting you here, as opposed to you belong there from the time you walk in the door, you better act like it. So that's how I take mothering as a revolutionary act. There is no confusion. You are dope. Yes, you are smart. Raise your hand. Say what you got to say, because there will be plenty of people telling you, keep your mouth shut. Some little boy told my child, her voice is so annoying. Why is she always raising her hand? I said, I will F a little boy up for you. Because she was crying at that moment. And she busted out laughing because A, she knows I'm so sincere, but B, I needed to pour into her in my Canarsie Lenape way, my Brooklyn NYC. Like, I am not playing. You are dope, and I will F that little boy up. Did you know? Because they are not going to be with me forever. And my oldest child going to college in the fall in a predominantly white space in a new city. I need her to be clear. Even if you make a mistake, you're still doper than most of the people there. So you need to act like it. I'll stop there because I could go on and on about my cheerleaders.
Yeah.
Whichever. Go ahead, Jen. Go ahead, cousin. Come on.
I'm about to say the Johnsons. Get in there.
It's just because we're feeling each other's energy. I almost want to ask you what your sign is, but
Sagittarius.
See?
We go in. We put the work. We go in.
Sagittarius, December the 9th. I'm telling you.
The 14th.
Wait until this pandemic is over.
Listen, we don't play about our people. When we love you, you may get over it. You may get over it and be cool with a person. And I'm still 5 years later, like,
yeah. And if anything, like let's just be real. If anything that this past week has taught us, even before this week, like we need to amplify our kids as much as we can while we still have them, as you said, while they're still alive and breathing. I don't want to celebrate and amplify my kid when he's been disposed of, when he's gone, I mean, it's been really hard to just watch that play over and over and over again. And that's been like the hardest thing to kind of process about revolutionary mothering is we put so much work into this act of having our kids advocate for themselves to go out and still be like at war with a society that wasn't built for them, and that's one of the hardest things to see. But yeah, I mean, it's spaces like this that continue to give me so much assurance and hope that that the community is the only thing that is going to be that vessel of just amplification for our kids, period. And continuing to kind of like stay connected with each other and letting our kids know that they're not alone and that they can exist in a space of support, because society continues to just blackball us, over and over. So.
This is an especially hard week, I feel like, for this question, and I'm so grateful to be here and be in conversation because I think somebody tweeted on social media at some point this week that I saw Black women are a bomb, and it's just so true. In thinking about like revolutionary mothering, like I said, I'm a historian of slavery, so I think about any act in which we are giving care and supporting and blessing and nurturing that next generation. Because we're not supposed to be here, and certainly not in the way that we are. So all of that is already like we were like Leela's saying, we're already dope. We've already won in a lot of ways, and I just reminding myself that actually has been revolutionary to me with the two little babies and trying to be a professional and try and support my family in its own ways, and folks at work and mentees and a whole range of folks, like being okay with wherever I'm at has been a revolutionary act, and a revolutionary work, because that's hard. Showing up for yourself too, as a mom, or as a new mom in my case, because my oldest is like gonna be 2 in June. That has been really, really hard. And also the intergenerational work. I was shocked by some of the intergenerational work that having children called me to, some of the ancestral work that having children has called me to, and the work of community, you know, rethinking who is in my network, who is in my community, who am I claiming as in. I identify also as queer, as BIFEM, identify as Black, African American, and Black Puerto Rican, and that means that my community, for me, is so broad and enmeshed in so many different ways, and thinking really concretely and logistically and in like physical ways about how to make that community manifest and together and show up for my children, which also means showing up for me and showing up for all the other people that I am a caregiver for. That has been amazing and transformative, and it's really reshaped how I think about, you know, how we're supposed to walk around in this world. So yeah, so I guess that's what revolutionary mothering is to me, you know, like being okay with where we're at, and also being okay with how things change, even in our relationships and in our community context.
Conjuring up some maroonage around here.
I think one of the conversation is making me think a lot about how I think about myself as a mother, how, you know, what I think about mothering. And one of the ideas that come to mind in terms of revolution mothering is how important honesty is. How honesty is sensitive. I have to be honest with myself, and I'm learning to be honest with my children. And so when Andrea was talking about, you know, being supportive and you know, thinking about the whole child, and Kalia is saying you're going to be the number one cheerleader. I think that has been a struggle for me. Like, I cheer for my kids, I support them, I tell them how awesome they are, but I also, when things don't look right, or I don't think that they are performing to their potential, you know, I feel like I can be honest, and I think it's important, especially when you talk about revolutionary motherhood or mothering, because I think it's important, at least for me, to prepare them to always do their best. And sometimes they may not know what their best is until they get that honest response from you. And then it's like, okay, they can push themselves more. But then I think with that honesty requires a certain level of grace. You know, I have to say, you have to talk to yourself as though you are a child, you know. So if I find myself messing up, or I'm not my best person, it's like, you know, how exactly do I go about correcting that? So I'm learning to give myself grace and say it doesn't have to look the way you want it to, or it doesn't have to be perfect. And that, you know, as your children are learning, you are learning. And coming to understand myself is always in process. I think is central to mothering.
Yeah. If I can add in there, I will say that is what you just said. Flip the switch for me. So the critique that I give to my kids is real, really real. And so there's no harsher criticism than, you know, they don't want to disappoint mama. Right. So in the midst of me saying you're dope, sometimes you're smarter than all of them. True Caribbean. Where's the other 2 points? If you got a 98 out of 100, what's the deal? Because I know you should be able to get these other 2 points. Like, that's real. I push and I push and I push, because once you show me excellence, there's no going backwards from that. And I am going to come for you when you tell me you're missing multiple assignments. Like, that's not excellence. That's not what we do here.
Right.
Because the world is going to keep telling them they're not enough. And so even in their flaws, I come for them, but it is still with the reminder, you're dope. You are it. You are enough. This is not who you are. Right. But in terms of race, I also, you know they can take a spa day, because F the world. How much is going to be on our shoulders and our backs? And so I also want to teach them right now, if you're not with it today, when I know you go to school every day and try your best, then you're not with it today. Okay.
That's okay. Right. Right.
I love that. I love that. May I add to that, please? I would. That was absolutely beautiful. As you were speaking, Dr. Kalila, I really just continue to meditate upon how it's just that grace is so important, but also it's just this is how we are moving through the world. You know what I mean? And we show up in this way. So there's no reason why we cannot demand that same, have that same expectation of our children, yet and still love on them super hard because they need it, they deserve it. It's so necessary. And that balance is absolutely just a beautiful revolutionary process because we affirm them in so many ways. And I know personally, I just know, perhaps generations before me did not necessarily have the language to be able to kind of, come in on the back end with that nurturing, loving language that you needed to really just feel uplifted and rooted in whom you are. And, that pushing and pushing and pushing is it's a great thing, but it's singularly, it's a lot. But as you navigate and just balance it out with the love, it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, I absolutely love to see it. I really do.
Yeah, I really appreciate the conversation around excellence. Dr. Daniel Black, who's at Clark Atlanta University, last Friday, he was talking around the cultivation of Black excellence within our community and the everydayness. And essentially, he was like, that auntie that knows how to make the best pound cake, that's Black excellence. For folks being raised within the Black church, when you had your Easter Sunday speech and you had the folks in the background like, speak up, baby, speak up. That is the cultivation of Black excellence in the everydayness. And so how much of that remembrance for us to be situated, like the degrees and all of those things are super amazing. Like we love obtaining, all of the knowledge and soaking in, and how equally it's in the everydayness, the ways and how we simply be, how we simply are as Black folks, and centering that in like our revolutionary mothering of like how we see each other, our commonalities. Is extremely important as well.
Listen, people might get mad at me for what I'm about to say. I don't care. Hashtag,
you're fiery.
Listen, hashtag judge your mother. People would say, I'm sure you want your daughter to be when they were younger. Like you have them so on point. You make it happen with them with school, and you put them where they're supposed to be, and after school and stuff. And I was like, no. If my daughter's a stripper, she better be the best one on the pole.
Hey, come on through. That's right.
Better be the best one on the pole. Got some endorsement deals with King Magazine, and
I want to see you all the way to the top.
Flip it over, put it down, all of that. Because for me, their joy is what will make them the most successful.
Yes.
And if your pathway takes you to being an artist, it's a little bit of a joke. I would prefer my child not to be a sex worker, but if something in their life leads them on that path, instead of judging and admonishing them, and Andrea, like you said, ejecting them from the community based on judgments of whom I don't know.
Right.
I will be honest and be like, for real, you on the pole? I pay too much for school for that. But when you need a momager? What we doing? Vegas, Miami. Like, and people are like, no, you wouldn't. I'm like, yes, I would, because I don't have the best relationship with my mother. And I don't want them to feel like I am ever rejecting them. Does that mean I won't pull their coattails when they're cutting up? Absolutely not. You ain't gonna be out in the street cutting a fool. But, right, so like if you're the stripper, you can't be over there drunk. We getting money. What are we doing, right? Like, be the best. You know what I'm saying? Be the best, whatever space you're in, because that is the excellence that I want to cultivate, that you are a free person.
Yeah.
You were born free. You are free. No one's going to give that to you. You have to claim it. So I can't in turn be like, well, if you're not going to Penn to be a biomedical engineering major, you're not worthy in this house. Like, no, go and be a doctor. You've been doing good at math all your life. That's dope, but we good, right? In the same way, if another one is like, I just want to be an artist, and Take a
Yeah.
gap year. That turns into 5 years. Well, put your blog up. Where you going? Right? Let's monetize it. Let's put a logo on it. Go on and travel because you are free. So people always get that tension and contradiction from me, and I don't feel it's a contradiction at all.
Yeah.
Show up as you in the space, not as mommy wants you to be.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was interesting, the cultivation of excellence, that we confuse Black excellence with white heteronormative acceptance and cultivation. And,
Exactly.
that ain't it.
Yeah.
This is making me think about the role of courage too. Like for this to be a revolutionary act, it requires courage, and it requires us to take an honest assessment of our own childhoods and how we were mothered, right? And what our mothers did well and what they did not so well. That's tough.
That's hard.
Now you got to go into your own trauma, into your own wounds, and that's that journey is no joke, but it requires courage.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's beautiful
Yeah.
though, if you lean into it and allow it to just, kind of groom you into, a new person. I mean, I think I tap into those spaces every now and then as I grow and evolve in my mothering process. Because I still look at things that happen between me and my mom, and I just take those cliff notes back to the drawing board and just be like, okay, well, we're going to do it over here a little different. And it's going to feel good. And that's that. And I also am very much in tune with my daughter as an individual, not whom I want her to be. And I think that is, paramount, just focusing on, like, my responsibility is not to try to right my wrongs through her. It's really just to allow her to be the best human that she can be, and just be, somewhat of those guardrails, that person of contact, that somebody she can just have a conversation with, and that's going to give them the real. But yeah.
I think I'm learning that when I lose my shit with my children, I'm like, okay, this is a place of trauma for you. Something is going on that you need to step back and be like, okay, why exactly did what did Elijah do that taps into something, a fear of yours?
Why is it Elijah though? Wait a minute.
Because he's the baby. I never did say I have 3 children, a 7-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 13-year-old. And the 7-year-old is a little boy, and he's the most, actually the middle child. My Clark does whatever she wants to do. She don't ask for, she don't ask for nothing. She don't even, she's just like, I'm going to do it. And my mother got a problem with it, I'll apologize about it later. And so the 2 youngest ones lately have been, they're on task now, but there was a period during this COVID nonsense where they were clicking submit on their homework and they weren't doing it. And I eventually got wind of this and lost my mind. And I realized, they weren't doing it because online learning is boring and it's a struggle, and they needed more attention and care. But I realized like so much of my reaction came from a place of fear, and it took a moment for me to step into the space of understanding, because I'm just deathly afraid of my children being trapped. And as much as I want to fight the educational system, and we do so in terms of the stories that we read at home and the histories that we teach them, also understand that they're very much part of a educational world that sees them and wants to be like, okay, because you scored this or got this grade, we're going to put you on this track. And I know what it means to be trapped. It limits what you imagine for yourself. And so we had a lot of conversations in our house, and now I spend the morning next to them for school, and they're getting a little better with their work.
Yeah. And if I could speak.
No, go ahead, John.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and then just from the perspective of a mom who's parenting like a disabled kid, it's like, a kid who exists in the world completely like unrelentlessly his true authentic self. because kids who are autistic are extremely literal. They don't understand sarcasm, and they're very much rooted in this is who I am, and the world can't necessarily change me. And it's really my job to amplify his authenticity and realize that his authenticity is his superpower. It's like I want for him to grow up being very confident and knowing that I'm me and who I am is amazing and perfect and dope. And it's not really my job to kind of fix him and to say, well, because society is this way and there's like these societal norms that you have to adhere or to comply to, then we have to kind of repackage you so that you're ready for this world. But I'm like, well, let's repackage the world to fit who you are, you know?
Yes.
Because ableism is like it's a real thing. And there's internalized ableism where we often feel that we're not good enough and we're not performing as Black moms. And that trickles, that emotion and that mood now more than ever, because our kids are around us 24/7 and they see that mood and they see how we're dealing with our frustrations. And it's a really interesting time. And so that's why, as we're talking about joy, like I love that. I love that that is paramount to this discussion, because that's really that's really what is ultimately our ammunition in this aspect of survival. It's that happiness, that willingness to just let it go, to have a good cry every once in a while, but then, and to know that there's can still be joy in pain, but making sure that there's some sort of transformation in that pain as well, so that the joy is what really kind of holds us. But also knowing that I just want my kid to be a real person, like not this superficial packaged, compliant kid who is going to be the yes man. But right, like if he actually wants to travel the world, but he's like authentically understanding who he wants to be, especially like as a Black disabled kid in America, who 50% of Black disabled kids are arrested by the time they're in their 20s. Authenticity is key in making sure that the world like accepts that, period. Like that's what disability should be really rooted in, is acceptance and allowing for people to accept, okay, well, you're different, but you're also different and amazing.
Yeah. Andrea, you talked about us having to do some work. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Like if you were to tell folks what would be some steps or some things that people need to do, some processes they need to go through to unearth some of that healing? Any recommendations?
I was actually thinking about, you posed the question, what do you deserve as a Black mom? And I was actually going to link that to us deserving to be checked. I think the patriarchy offers Black motherhood and puts it on this pedestal where some of our actions are beyond reproach. And specifically, I'm thinking about how we sometimes speak to our children, putting our hands on that sort of thing. Like it, the story is that's acceptable, and that because mama is the matriarch, she's above criticism. So I'm ready for us to dig in there and be honest about some of the harms that we commit against our children.
That's very real. So we're gonna dig in. So on Sunday I was on a panel and Brandy Sellers Jackson was talking about the importance of us acknowledging what we deserve. And so let's go there. What is it that you deserve? What is it that we deserve as Black mamas?
Y'all know what I said already. I did it yet.
Don't we deserve
I said it over them in the back. I said everything.
I'm in the nap ministry.
I'm gonna go with ease.
Right. I need a nap today.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with ease.
Day after that.
Yep. We deserve ease.
Yeah, I think Black mamas, they say those of us who are Gen X or 40 or over, that we function best if we only work 3 days a week.
Yes.
Never heard that.
Yes.
I love
think
it.
Black mamas, we should have 2 days on, 2 days off, and that's it.
Come on.
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean,
Now you're
we've been raising the globe, so don't we get it?
Hello?
We need paid time off.
Kalila, you're my friend, okay? We friends. Right?
It's a fact.
Yeah, we're real friends.
Yeah.
I want to
Coming from
I
the
wanna lift
generation where we had to no.
I want to lift up. I did say everything, and I do know ease is important and rest. My God, rest. But I want to lift up like concrete things, and I just want to in February I was on a panel also with Tanae that was celebrating the book Revolutionary Mothering. It was an amazing panel with the contributors and the editors, two of the editors of the volume, and one of the things that it reminded me, though, is that, we have concrete demands. Like we have concrete things that those who mother need and want, concrete resources, access to healthcare, access to food, housing, living and beyond living wages, pensions and retire. Like we have things that we deserve. And so, I definitely, yes, rest and all of that. But I'm also thinking of it in the context of, as the descendant of enslaved Africans, as knowing what I know about slavery, as having been created in part through the reproductive function of Black women. I want all of my things. I want all of it back. We deserve all of the things that they say are entitlements or are things we don't deserve now. And so when I said everything, I mean everything. I want to rest, but I also want every single resource that has been taken from us for however many years. And I want it in our hands, like in the mother's hands, however, and that's beyond gender binary, in the mother's hands, because we know when we put it in the caregiver's hands, it gets back to the community. It gets back and it gets redistributed. So that's what I think we deserve.
Well, on tangibility, let me put student loan debt relief.
Come on.
My student loans, I tell people all the time, my student loans live in this beautiful home overlooking the Pacific Ocean. And the house, my student loans are like, hey girl, I'm like, no, where's Sally? Where's Sally Mae? I need to talk to her. Listen, Joe Robinette Biden needs to handle my student loans. And I am joking and not joking at all.
I'm dead serious.
I'm so serious. There are so many things that we hold ourselves from because of our student loans, because of the lack of a safety net or intergenerational wealth. And I don't necessarily mean capitalistic wealth. I mean health, wellness, mental safety, land. And absent those things, there is repair that needs to happen. I've had conversations with people who say, well, I don't believe people who make a certain amount of money should have access to student loan debt relief. And I'm like, well, if I don't work for the next 60 days, my student loans are going to be the least of my concerns. And, I am working, I won't say working poor, but I am someone who is in that space where I don't have a parent who could bail me out if something happens to my home or my vehicle. I'm trying to do the best for my children. And my student loans actually prohibit me from living a better life. I shouldn't say better, living a life that removes some of the stress that that manifests in ways that I don't like with my children. So, 10,000 ain't gonna cut it if you don't start at 50, Joe Biden.
If you don't start at
5, I want to see my money.
That's the starting place.
Since we get a little more concrete, I deserve my role and my contribution to my son's future manhood recognized. It's specifically about this sentiment of you can't raise a man. I feel like I'm assaulted with this frequently. And I understand, the basis, right? The idea being that a father is irreplaceable, baby. Everybody need daddy. I got you. I'm there. But something about the arrangement of the phrase, it just feels as if it's designed to shame me as a single mother. And that qualifier there too. But the contributions I'm making to this boy's life is learning how to be in a healthy, meaningful relationship with a woman. There's no sexual ties here. There are sorts of pathways that I can only shape alone. And so I understand it, but I need a little bit more context added to that. Ideally, we want both parents to be shaping our children's lives. But if that's not the case, I would like not to be shamed. Thank you very much.
The flip side of that is a brother, Geechee, y'all, asked in the comments, whether or not we felt like the term black girl magic could be weaponized against us. And it's so interesting because on one hand, we are expected to be superheroes. We are expected to be magical, that the things we are able to do with so few resources or with so many messages saying we're not enough. Is it cool for us to be saying black girl magic? And I think sometimes we allow terminology to get away from us and others to reshape it and manipulate it in ways that takes our agency from us. If I want to say I'm a magical black girl, I want to call my daughters magical black girls, I'm going to do that. But I'm not going to allow you to think I'm your mule, right? And so black girl magic doesn't mean I am responsible for or required to take your shit off of you. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean I am the only one who cooks. It doesn't mean that I have to dim my light or make sure you feel manly because your ego won't allow you to see me as your equal. So it's interesting because I keep hearing this thing about black girl magic being a problem. And I get the context with which people say it. But if Andrea is being a phenomenal mom, she's not a superhero, she's a super person who understands her role in cultivating a beautiful black boy. And so she should be given that respect. So when you say, I want acknowledgement, absolutely. Absolutely. And I know some men will be like, well, we need to be acknowledged for our role as fathers in the lives of children. 100%. If a little girl's first love is her father, she is likely to be extremely confident, regardless of her sexual orientation. But that positionality of that presence, loving on that person, lasts a lifetime. So we don't take that away. And I would say we don't say that enough. But on the flip side, you can't tell me as a mom, I'm not capable of producing beauty out of this man who's going to go into the world. So, I am magical. And I mean that in the ancestral frame as well. So, if you'd like to be introduced to Ovia, come for me and I'll come for you. But otherwise, it's complicated.
I don't mind black girl magic. My worry when we get caught up in that sort of fantasy, that fantastic world, is that we forget the very real things that black girls are contending with, including adultification, criminalization, literacy rates that are, in the dumps. And I understand, I hate to be like the bearer of bad news. I'm not, I appreciate that celebration, but I don't want for it to be, as Larry is indicating, weaponized against us and used to kind of divert resources and attention that our girls need.
I deeply agree with that. I guess my position is, it's funny, with one breath we're celebrating ourselves with black girl magic, with the next breath is like, don't make me magical because I need help just like everybody. Like, okay, I got that. But I get to be magical. Okay. I get to be magical. It's not for you to determine that, right? It's not for you to determine or to use it in a manner of exceptionalism that is used as a weapon against people. Like, well, you're a magical Black girl, but these over here, they the ghetto, that's ghetto. That's no. We all magical. We all magical, or none of us are magical. Which group of us would you like? So I definitely take your point, and don't hear it as a bearer of bad news. I hear it as realistic, and too often our girls are not given the opportunity to be girls, right? It's straight to that woman or that gal or that young lady. It's like, she's a baby. She's 11. She's a little girl, right? So it's facts. I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Are we still on I Deserve?
You can go to I Deserve. We were going to. You can keep going. If I Deserve is where you at, we're gonna be there.
Because Kalila just touched a nerve. I deserve to define myself and my experience, redefine it. I recognize now, at least in the space of being an entrepreneur and building things, like it really has been such a spiritual walk as far as just creating the space for myself and sharing my art with the world, but it truly being really a story of my self-healing journey. And almost like folks just get a window into it in a nice artistic way. But just redefining and just allowing myself to, say for myself, what does this mean for me? What is magical for me? What is success for me? And not really, looking to my left or looking to my right, but just looking in the mirror at myself and being truly honest. I know we went there before, but it's just so important that we define ourselves and we define our experiences and not allow anyone else to blanket us with their own interpretation of whom we are or their perception of us or their fear, you know what I mean? Just really shining through. So I deserve to define myself and my experience.
Yeah. Listening to you, Sam, and Andrea, and really everyone on the panel, but I wanted to highlight this that has been healing for me. Andrea and Sam, your fashion and your expression has been healing for me. I was cultivated in like movement spaces where you just throw on a t-shirt and all of that. But I also went deeper to uncover the ways in how young boys would think that my body was theirs. And I wanted to always wear baggy clothing. And so it's been nourishing to see both of you along my own mothering journey to step into that feminism, to step into that level of fashion and just loving on my own body. And so I wanted to say that and thank you both for just the way you show up in that way. That's not all of who you are, but just appreciate all of who you are and the connection to that.
It's my pleasure. Andrea, girl, listen, I got to check you out because I know you be doing the things. I can see you all bursty over here on my camera and everything. But to me, like, I say all the time, I think of fashion as an armoring tool. That's why I got into designing accessories. We put adornments on our bodies every day and we don't really give any light to the fact that they, they help to shape us, our mood and so forth, or they tell a story about how we truly feel about ourselves. So really being, in tune with your body and your temple and your feelings and so forth. Once you tap into that space, it's just like you can do anything as it pertains to fashion. It's just all about you. And it's just another language that we can speak to help to just, amp up our power and introduce us before we even speak aloud. So I love using fashion as that tool. And especially when, girl, listen, okay, polka dots, when we come through, it's a whole moment. So
come on, green hoodie. Okay.
All right, deep lip. Come on now. Listen, I love it, but we are really vibrant and I just love, that's just my medium of choice, but I hear you tonight.
It's interesting because, so I started in a paradigm called Hooded and Hood. It's clear. It's clear. Those things. And, and that started during COVID. The ability to express myself creatively and not always be on the policy side, on the activist side, on the organizing side has been so, it also gives me a sense of freedom that I can tell anybody on any day, kick rocks, because I have another way to secure the bag. And as this conversation is about mothering as an active revolution, the joy I felt in my kids wearing my apparel to model it so that I could hawk my wares, and what seeps into them as you can do anything. You are free to do anything. You are free to make a mistake, start a business, have it fail, and start another one, right? Or
Yes.
go back to school. Okay, you want to be a lawyer when you're 50? Go off. What we doing? Let's get it. Right?
Let's
You got
roll.
another
Yeah.
50 years to live, so go forward. And so, just that idea of coming as your authentic self, Andrea, Rashida Govan. I think we were at morning together, but I don't remember you at morning. But Rashida is always like, my girl, she is fierce, she is fly. I see you, I'm like, she looks like she's about to be on the runway. I feel like if I could just put on a shirt that fits, that's ironed, I'm doing good that day. But it's funny you said that, Tanae, because it's also inspiring to me.
Mm-hmm.
You think to yourself, oh, if I do mascara, something, a lip, I don't know.
Do it.
Yeah.
Extra sauce all the time. Do it.
But also thinking of that in context of mothering, like what you had said, Sam, of like adorning ourselves and it as like as a spiritual thing. Like,
yes,
how has that manifested for you all in your mothering journey?
I mean, I lost myself when I was married. Looking at pictures from the time I was married, focused on my 2 kids, and just trying to be, picket fence and what the world says you're supposed to be as a wife and a mom. And I'm like, dude, you're not fly. Ain't you from Brooklyn? You're from Flatbush. Why you look like that? And no lie, I lied to you not. And it's interesting because people who saw me after my divorce in a couple of years, there was a lot of, I see you. Okay. I know you. Okay. And it's like, did I know? Right? Lost myself. And so coming back to myself and wearing door knockers, I have a pair that says Dr. KH in it that my best friend got for me. Yes. Like I am for real hood, but I am hooded and I come with multifacets. So the loss, I do describe it as a loss of myself. Enjoyment of, today I'm rocking Timbs, tomorrow I'm going to put on a stiletto heel and show out. All right. But I had to get back to it.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's something too to those who are the birthing persons, like the ways that we don't talk about, the changes to the body, the changes with hormones, the shift from pregnant to postpartum to whatever your body is after. Like, I don't know if we, maybe that's something to think about and to think through, and what are the ways that our adornment practices has helped us kind of come back to that. Like, that's definitely one of the things that I've been working through and thinking about, and I've always been really interested in adornment practices and the ways that historically it's been used, whether it's earrings, hairstyles, head wraps, dresses. I mean, these were things that were outlawed, in women of color and free women of color, enslaved women weren't, like there were laws passed to, prevent you from having jewelry or prevent you from, wearing certain head wraps or wearing silks or whatever it was all across, the Caribbean. And so, whenever I'm thinking about like these as acts and like as ways of reclaiming self, I'm also thinking about like these are also still revolutionary radical acts. Like, they seem like, who would care that, you're wearing perfume, but somebody at some point did and understood that as an affront to empire and an affront to slave ownership and an affront to whiteness. And so, there's something there that I think has been a strategy we've used that is so powerful. And that was one of the things I kind of went back to and began to try and practice again. And I'm trying to practice more. So, more the earrings. Trying to practice more as I've, come out of like postpartum moment. And feel like I'm just getting my body back to where I feel like I recognize, where my muscles are again and all of those things. Like, but it's real. And the physical readjustments are as real as like, also like having babies now in the last couple of years. I don't know if it's a millennial thing, but that whole like bounce back and the kind of outside pressure that can be put on Black women especially, but across the board, to get back to business, all that capitalist and uh, that the kind of ways that our bodies are assessed, that our beauty is assessed. It's a lot to shake off, and it's a lot of work. And I found myself going back to like, all right, what are the practices that I know that have worked for centuries? Pull back on those and pull those up and out and use those as your tools because they've been useful in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Giving birth is traumatic to the body and can translate into trauma for some people, depending on whether or not you're able to reshape your identity in a healthy way. So sometimes it's not, it's not just the superficial adornment, but really an act of revolution in terms of self-care and figuring out who I am now that I'm responsible for mothering. I don't look like myself. This body doesn't move like it used to move. Just struggling with all of that. Yeah, like we don't talk about that at all. I didn't feel like myself until 3-4 years after each child. That was never told to me. See you later. I'll see you in 4 years, sis. I should have just said that when I went in to give birth. I will see you in 4 years because you won't be back.
Don't say that. I'm barely at 2. Wait a minute.
Ain't nobody say that. Shoot.
Yeah.
And we don't give grace or space for that. I mean, certainly society does not, but I'm not sure that even we give ourselves grace or space to be like, it's going to take time. Like there's actual like real time space continuum that's involved in us being okay. That's why I guess like one of my things is like, all right, it's okay. Like wherever it's at, wherever I'm at on all levels, emotionally, mentally, psychically, physically, on this day, on this planet, it's going to be okay. And how important that is. As a new mom.
Right.
Just to be honest, we've been stewing in this frame of mind, you know what I mean, for so long. It's just, it's almost like it is an unpeeling and unlayering and unlearning of this so that, perhaps the next generation, it'll be easier for them to really, not necessarily psych themselves into believing, but it'll have more of a flow to it. So it's all a process. Absolutely is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We were talking around like the body's hurting. Most recently, I was reading a dissertation. It's called Beyond the Veil. And one of the things that they talk about in there is really centered on the grand midwives, the Black midwives, the Southern traditions. And they would have dreams of their apprentices. And they would go up to them and say, I had a vision. God is telling me that I'm supposed to teach or train you. And some of the apprentices would be like, I didn't get that. I didn't get that message. we just talk about. And what we would talk about is that when they weren't stepping into their calling, they would feel their body aching. And it had me thinking around moments where my body was hurting, and it had me. I literally wrote on my wall, "Am I stepping into my calling? Is that why my knee is hurting? Is that why my elbow?" So it's thinking around those things, like we could lose ourselves in mothering and motherhood in the ways and how we have to reclaim it. We also have to ask ourselves a question, like, are we stepping into our light, into our truth, into our authentic self? And how do we reclaim and uncover it? So I was thinking, we were talking about, like, yes, is the body shifting post, right? The things that we're not moving, but then also is the body hurting because we're not stepping into our God destined or ancestral lineage. And so thinking and contending with that a bit.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Come on now, come on.
All right, so let's talk a little bit. We have about 15 minutes. And I know we got folks who are like, no, don't leave. So let's think through centering liberation. How is liberation manifesting itself for you through time and space? What comes up for you when you're thinking about centering liberation? Also thinking about in the midst of this global pandemic, the constant epidemic of being Black in this world, and all the things.
Was someone else starting to speak? Okay. So Shawnee talked before about the kids running amok and having to get them back together in pandemic school. And I do education policy. I'm an educator. We're in a school, and when people ask me advice over the last year about how to manage school, I'd be like, "Fuck school.
That's right.
It's a pandemic." And they'd be like, "Well, they missed this many assignments." I'm like, "Okay, I dare somebody to tell me they failing my child in a pandemic."
JJ dropped out the second day. Sit home and pack it. I was like, nah, I ain't gonna be able to do it.
When you talk about centering liberation, you got to decide who's in charge of your life. Yeah, now, that's not to say, let your kids run amok. They don't have to do school for a year, but we are all trying our best. And even the idea that they went back to school to get back to normal, like, this ain't normal. So what have you been doing all year? You've been forcing educators into a position where they're being asked to do the same things that they were doing brick and mortar, which in and of itself is nonsensical. Then you have parents beating themselves up, feeling like they're not doing enough to keep them on track with a nonsensical program. And so you're like, you know what? I'm like, you know what? I'm free, and I dare somebody to fail my kids. Now, are they failing? No. A couple of them have slipped on assignments. Do they need to get yoked up? Sure. I wasn't communicating. You don't have to do anything. But in the grand scheme of things, what you're not going to do is tell me the word failing or not meeting with success. No, you're not meeting with success because you come in here with nonsense. You failing. You failing the message today because you're going to learn, not my child. And just, people don't feel that freedom about or autonomy about the systems that we live in. Mm-hmm. And I try to help people move there either by example. It's funny, the number of times I've said to people, go on vacation. What they gonna do to you? And people are like, oh yeah, I could just go. What are they gonna do? Nothing. They're gonna fake arrest you like they said Kamala did for truant parents that nobody got arrested, nobody went to jail for. I digress, but it's claim your liberation. You have to model for your children that conformity is not the answer. Being communal and being part of a healthy community is important, but conformity is always going to kill them. So today, when you talk about your body telling you something ain't right, and the mentees that I have, I have one mentee apply to a doctoral program, she didn't get in. I said, maybe you're not supposed to be in right now. And she was like, right, who told you that you have to? And she said her body was hurting.
Yes.
Oh. She said her body was hurting. I said, because you have this vision for yourself that I think was created externally, and perhaps you need to pause for a second and decide where your freedom is. When you talk about center and liberation, for me, it's I buying land. The end. Buying land, buying acreage that any one of my children and their families can come to, that I can go to when I want to, and that perhaps my thought is if I get enough of it, I will grant some of it or deed some of it back to the indigenous tribal nation that were on the land before me, but before us. Yeah. But don't tell me what to do. I come with that positionality anyway. Yeah. I'm a little bit anti-authority, but I'm free. You ain't gonna tell me. Don't call me talking about your kids that hasn't been in school in a week. I know we on the beach.
Jessica, how are you centering liberation?
I was sitting here thinking about it.
To jump in
and trying to I mean I was sitting here thinking about it and trying to put it into words. I think for me, like it's a lot. It's something Kalila said that was really powerful to me, which is that you can't let basically let external factors or external rubrics decide what liberation is for you. That can't be how you define yourself, essentially. And so, in thinking of, revolutionary mothering and thinking of liberation in that context, it's been a lot of thinking about, what kind of community I really want to be part of, and how to show up for that and for them. And I guess some of it is I've been, with them being so small, so much of my time is tied up with them, and I'm used to being able to kind of like, get people together, phone calls, whatever else. COVID has also reshaped a lot of that. I mean, we've been in this a year, and so I have not been able to gather with the people I would normally gather. I've got family in a different place from where I'm at. I make regular trips to New Orleans normally because that's also a place that I love and I feel accountable to, and I haven't been able to do any of that. So, this is also a question I'm kind of answering in the context of us having to be cloistered for so long for good reason, and I'm fine with it. And the ways that, I've seen my commitments and my community grow despite that, like I have a friend here in Baltimore who recently had a child, and I claim them as part of, family and kinship. I claim the Mott Connollys as uncles and aunties also of these children. Like there's been a kind of renewed commitment to not, and I always had this commitment, but not dividing myself in a kind of heteropatriarchal nuclear family. And it's one thing, look who is naked. Maybe it's one thing to say that, and then it's another thing to try and really practice that. So liberation for me it's a practice. It's trying to do it all the time, over and over. And I'm just trying. I'm trying to be the world that I want to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Shawnee, what about you?
I think that liberation for me, like Jessica, it very much is a process. Like I think about it in terms of always working towards a freedom that does not seek, look for, or need affirmation or validation. I think that is it's such a tricky space because we want, people to say great job, or that's brilliant, or that's wonderful, or that's smart, and then you feel like you need that energy to then keep going. But I think what I'm finding slowly and slowly is that the affirmation is a drug, right? It really does work in the long term to enslave you. And so as I try to imagine liberation, particularly in terms of mothering, I think I am always asking myself and asking my daughters to ask themselves, because that's central. It's like, what do you like, or do you like it, or what do you think what you've done is good? Because I feel like I want to raise the kind of people who don't see me as the authority figure, and then by extension don't see other people out there as the deciders of what is good or what is bad. And so I love it. It's frustrating sometimes where you're like, that don't look right, or my daughter recently bought what I consider the ugliest pair of pants on the face of the earth. They're these cow print pants, and I clowned her. I was like, oh, those are some ugly pants. And she just turned her head up at me and was like, whatever, I know I'm fashionable. Exactly, right? And I was like, okay, whatever. So we went to the mall. She put these pants on with this hot pink top. And I swear to you, there were at least 4 or 5 women who stopped her and was like, you look fabulous. I love those pants. And each time they complimented her, she just gave me a side eye. Like, I told you. And so I think about that. Like that is liberation. It's, in spite of what it is I said and my conservative taste, she was bold enough and courageous enough to be like, I like it. I think it's fabulous, and I'm going to do it. And so in that moment, she modeled for me a different kind of freedom. And do you? That's the liberation.
Do you, boo? Andrea, Sam, Jen?
When I think about liberation, I think about it in relation to our collective freedom. I think about, and I don't know exactly how I'm contributing there. I would have to think about that. Y'all know I get the questions last minute, so let me skip to the freedom part. I had a busy day today. So Toni Morrison defines freedom as the ability to choose your responsibilities. Not to not have any responsibilities, but the ability to choose your responsibilities. So I've been working very hard to craft a life where I'm choosing what I'm responsible for. That has meant quitting a job that was counterintuitive to my way of being, to consulting full time, into doing the work that I love, like among my people constantly. So that's how I've been, trying my best to exercise freedom. And now, my hope is that I can grow a revolutionary summer to a place where I can welcome other Black women and girls to be able to do the same.
I would say for me, liberation in my personal home life just looks like just giving myself pause and space to breathe and not necessarily just continue to go, go, go. I feel like in those spaces of just trying to keep with the momentum, you lose out on the richness of life's experiences, and just being able to allow myself to just pause for a moment and just kind of look around and just be like, goodness, these are the things I prayed for. Amen. And just, really kind of, do whatever I need to do, whether it's celebrate, cry, or throw, whatever it is, just giving myself that space to be able to flow through my experience. In my career, I use my art as a tool of liberation. I am always creating with the intention of encouraging folks to be more mindful about what they wear, and how they're showing up in the world. And just, fashion just happens to be the medium of choice. And, these beads are just stepping stones to a bigger conversation. I always say it's always about just trying to route the person back to themselves, because I know that personally has been just part of my liberation, is just finding out truly who I am before I was distorted by all these other factors and variables and external things. So that's me in liberation.
Thank you. It was Shauna Murray Brown says that freedom is individual and liberation is the collective. I've oftentimes heard that in movement spaces as a remembrance, but she succinctly puts it together.
Yes.
So we have a few moments. We could totally keep going on and talk to each other. This has been so loving and nourishing. But what is bringing you delight? Let's take us away and end our time together on what it is that's bringing you delight.
Therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it just kind of, it really, just from what everyone has been saying, like collective freedom and understanding that collective liberation can't really be created in a silo. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be created in a space of isolation if you can help it. If we can come together like as a unit to all speak the same language, that in itself can be like a space of empowerment. And it's really been just trusting like the creativity and sharing those gifts and trusting those gifts, because as and I'm so glad that we have a lot of artists and designers like in this talk, because I know a lot of us didn't think that our work could have the same impact like in the pandemic, and that in itself was like a very scary space to be. And just watching like the artwork still have so much purpose, and now it just has so much more intention because of the way that we have been isolated. It's been liberating to watch that evolve and to watch that grow and to trust that. That has been extremely liberating, for me and my home, and creating artwork with my son, and specifically using like language that is meant to uplift like a community that is often marginalized, and a community that's different and not necessarily praised for those differences but ostracized for those differences. And so I'm just so much more intentional about the work and the language and the words that are being amplified, like whether it's on a shirt, whether it's on a poster or a sticker or a button, just knowing that the language itself is justice if the language itself is like liberatory.
Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And just a little plug for Jen. In the chat, we did put Jen's amazing website and her work. Oh, here it is. Look. Jen, you want to share a little bit about your work?
So basically the very first line up at the top, the second one, if you click on that, where it says create more anti-ableist spaces, that sticker design just really came from a space of letting people know that as a society, we really shouldn't stand for any kind of culture that is meant to oppress people that exist differently, you know? And so that was really like my statement of purpose and a call to action, to let people know that we need to be able to create more spaces that aren't necessarily rooted in, you know, oh, well, in order for you to have value, you have to be productive and you have to exist and you have to speak in this way. You can't be disabled. You can't have a physical or an invisible disability, because you're really telling people that they really just can't come and existing with any kind of like health challenges that they have, you know? And then if you go to my website, I'm just so happy to hear that a lot of folks on this call have been designing like apparel and liberatory like garments, and I love all of that language. And a lot of the ways that I practiced that was in poetry and writing and getting my son to really to feel free to just express like the world that he wanted to exist in. So kindness, and in if you scroll down, there's a book on moon phases and all of these things that he just loves to be able to bring to life. And this was last year, and he's already grown so much, just from talking about jazz and his love for music. And he was actually able to get published. A few of these zines were a part of a really cool set that debuted at the Printed Matter virtual book fair, which is like a huge book fair that's based out of New York. And it was like 1,000 people who were just participating, and a whole bunch of zinesters and makers. And it was just phenomenal to be able to see him being recognized within that space. And this was literally just a little virtual zine fest that we just did together. Like we just would design together, and we would print, and we would like, you know, fold these little paper zines that just talked a little bit about like what we did during our day, what we loved. And this was like my school, you know, like I agree with everyone's sentiments in terms of enough with vocabulary, enough with math. Like we've got that. Like what about what kind of conversations are we having? What kind of relationships do we really want to build with the words that we're using to help uplift a community that we feel doesn't really often get, you know, the love, and just the visibility. And so I'm hoping that all of these fun narratives that we're creating together, amplifying autistic joy and using color, using so many vibrant aspects of our existence, that it can help him feel like I can use all this stuff to really like express everything that I want to be and everything that I want to see. So yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Jen. Thank you all so much. Are there any last thoughts, reflections that you all would like to add to the conversation?
Just an expression of gratitude to be invited into the conversation and to spend this time with y'all. It's really been an honor. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bloom, for having us and for honoring Black Maternal Health Week. So important.
Yeah.
And thank you, Tanae. Yeah.
Thank y'all so very much. This has definitely been nourishing for the soul. Exactly what was needed for a lot of us as we continue to just simply be and have to navigate the space. And so, you know, when we talk about Black mamas, particularly for the Black Mamas Matter Alliance, we're acknowledging all of those who love, nurture, and support our families, our children, our communities, regardless if you're gender nonconforming, femme, all of the things, anyone who just loves and nourishes our family. And so we thank you all so much for joining us. We love y'all, and we will continue to be in community and right relationship, and look forward to the next time that we get together. In the chat box, you will find linkages to all of the things, from hood to hooded to electric maroonage, to buying Jessica's book, to supporting a revolutionary summer, to the family that reads together, and the amazing work that Jen is doing. And so we thank you all, and also New Vintage by Sam. So get yourself a healing bracelet, and for yourself and for your families and loved ones. And so thank you all so much, and continue following hashtag BMHW21 for the continuation of the national and international work being done to support and honor Black Maternal Health Week. And again, thank you all. Love and light. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.